Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone and welcome to Psycholinguistic class. We are from group 5 TBI 5C which consists me, Gina Safira, and my partners Awalia Dewi and Yulia Dwi Cahyaningsih. We would like to explain about the biological foundation of language acquisition. So let's move to first topic. The first topic is about the biological foundation of language acquisition. According to Lenneberg, there's a lot of evidence showing that humans receive a biological inheritance in the form of the ability to communicate using language specific to humans and has nothing to do with intelligence and thought. The evidence that humans have been biologically prepared from language, according to Lenneberg, is language ability is closely related to parts of human anatomy and phonology, such as certain parts of the brain whose language is. The second is language can be taught to other creatures. Until now, there has never been another creature capable of mastering language even though it has been taught in extraordinary ways. The third, every language without exception is based on universal principles of semantics, syntax, and phonology. Lenneberg concludes that many argue that attempts to language based on biology are specific to humans and locally sourced. The fourth, language development cannot be inhibited even in children who have certain disabilities such as blind, deaf, or have deaf parents since birth. However, these children's language continues to develop with only a slight delay. And last, the same language development schedule applies to all normal children. All children can be said to follow the same strategy and timing of language acquisition, namely more in mastering the principles of division and patterns perception. So based on Lenneberg states that humans have a biological inheritance or inborn in the form of their ability to communicate with verbal language, and that ability has nothing to do with intelligence or thought. Therefore, language ability has little correlation with human IQ. When child is born, he already has this ability even though he only has low-level thinking abilities. Furthermore, Lenneberg's research proves that normal children's language skills are the same as children with disabilities. Lack of intelligence for him doesn't automatically mean slowness in language. Lenneberg's findings suggest that language ability has little correlation to human IQ. The second topic, the hypothesis of innateness. Lenneberg, 1964, set forth the seminal arguments for the innate human component by presenting four arguments for biological innateness of psychological capacities, such as universal appearance of a trait at a single time across species, universal appearance across time for a group, no learning of trait is possible, individual development of a trait rigidly follows a given schedule regardless of the particular experience of the organism. These were constructed in parallel to arguments in biology for the innateness of physical traits. Lenneberg's arguments were later studied by Chomsky in 1965, 1980, and 2005, and popularized by Pinker in 1994. The innateness hypothesis is the hypothesis that children's brains are programmed to learn language. It is important to note that while children seem to have the ability to acquire language easily, adults acquiring a second language find it a much more difficult process. This makes universal grammar available only to children acquiring their first language. In order to apply the inborn awareness of language and experience of language into knowledge that a child can use, there must be some sort of a drive within a child's brain that pushes this comprehension forth. Chomsky explains this drive as a language faculty or a language acquisition device. The language faculty is allegedly located within a person's brain and converts experience and inborn knowledge into knowledge of language. It helps children make use of the knowledge they possess. Ever since Chomsky presented his theory, it has become an influential view among linguists that children are born with prior knowledge of the type of categories, operation and principle that are found in the grammar of a human language. Children therefore know that the words in the language they are acquiring will belong to a small set of syntactic categories and that they can be combined in particular ways to create larger phrases, while they have to learn the words they later divide into categories. That's all from me, so the next topic will be presented by my partner.
Next material is the hypothesis of critical age. So, the hypothesis of critical age is the most clearly put forward in 1967 in an important book by Lanneberg, Biological Foundations of Language. Lanneberg ascribes special importance to puberty, after which the ability for self-organization and adjustment to the psychological demands of verbal behavior quickly declines. This hypothesis is a part of the larger issue of how much of our abilities for language, if any, is special and exclusively dedicated to language, as opposed to how much is based on domain, general, non-exclusive abilities. As in any science, the simplest hypothesis would be one which makes no special assumptions, the null hypothesis. In this case, the null hypothesis is the domain general hypothesis that language doesn't require anything biological that is exclusively dedicated to it, by William in 1967. The critical period hypothesis is a particularly relevant case in point. This is the claim that there is indeed an optimal period for language acquisition ending at puberty, by Abello Contes, 2009. Next material is the hypothesis of bird songs. Documenting female songs from a broad geographic and taxonomic range is a large task with the potential for greatest success if researchers from all fields participate. Ornithologists can help by disseminating their observations and engaging researchers, students, field technicians, and citizen scientists. We encourage researchers to spread the word about female birdsong, share applicable information and resources, and work with interested students and wildlife enthusiasts to listen for female song in established lab for field populations of marked sex by individuals. Working collectively, we can best document the range of avian vocal diversity in both for the broadest number of species. With this data, we can then comprehensively address major questions about the regulation, function, evolution, and conservation applications of song, from Odom and Benedict, 2018.
Okay, the next material is about the acquisition of sign language. Sign language is a language that doesn't use the usual or main way of communicating, which is use sound and uses language like normal people use language in the normal life. So sign language is the language that usually used by groups or individuals with disabilities, such as deaf people, which means this language usually uses body language and lip movements instead of sound in the communication process. So they usually express the languages, express what their communication with the hands, arms, and facial expression, and also eyes signals or eyes language. They will be understood through the eyes. Not only about this sign language is not only used by groups or individuals with disabilities, but for groups, for children too. The children who not yet to talk with the sound, with the language, they will be in the first language acquisition is sign language is the first language acquisition for them to help them to communicate what they want to talk. According to Mayberry 2010, sign language is divided into parts based on social condition, based on the diversity of social origins, namely village sign languages and deaf community sign. Village signs languages is a sign language that arise because of their existence. So this sign language exists because the community or the groups of the disabilities people, for example, the deaf people, it's exists in the one environmental, and then the children who born with disabilities is born in that environment. So the sign language called village sign language. And the next is deaf community sign. Is a sign language that appears when a group of deaf individuals who come from different places of residence and then are united to form a community by the environment. This deaf community sign arises because the groups of disabilities people, it's come from different places, or for example is like school environment with the many people that have a different background, different places around in the one place, and then they have to communicate each other, they have to doing some communicating process, and then this deaf community sign is called sign language that can use in that environment. So I think it's enough for me. That's about the material about the acquisition of sign language. Thank you very much. Goodbye.